Well, when it comes to public schools in the city of St. Louis, good news can seem hard to come by. But recently, SLPS held a press conference that felt more like a party, announcing the district is once again fully accredited, the first in the state to ever regain that status after losing it. So does that mean all kids in city public schools are receiving a top-flight education? No. Does it mean the district has turned a corner? Maybe. And what does it mean for the city and the region beyond those in the classroom? Joining us in the studio, two men at the center of the fight for re-accreditation, St. Louis Schools Superintendent Dr. Kelvin Adams and CEO of the St. Louis Public Schools Special Administrative Board, Rick Sullivan, as well as St. Louis Post-Dispatch education reporter Kristen Taketa. The battle for accreditation is over, but the fight to educate our children continues, so we hope you'll stay tuned.
So we're going to do the show.
Stay Tuned brings together local experts, journalists, civic leaders, and regular people to have tough conversations for a stronger St. Louis. Add your voice to our conversation, and you're at the table as we stay on top of current events and go deeper, bringing more light and less heat to the issues that matter. From the 9 network of public media in Grand Center, this is Stay Tuned.
15 to the roll.
9 years, 9 months, and 19 days after the state of Missouri stripped the St. Louis Public School District of its accreditation, the district did something very few have ever done anywhere. It regained full accreditation.
I think everybody in this room recognized that, this is the beginning. This is accreditation is really the lowest level of, or the minimum level of quality that a school district should have. So at this point, there's still work to be done, and we all have to redouble our efforts to continue the momentum.
The district says it has momentum, but no question there is still work to be done before SLPS can say it's fixed the district.
We know that we have a lot of work ahead of us. We're committed to that work as we have been before. I think we're a little bit smarter and wiser in terms of what we've done, and we will continue to do the work that this community demands, and I ask that you hold us accountable to make sure that every single kid gets the kind of quality of education that he or she deserves.
There are many challenges for the district moving forward. What's the timetable for the state-appointed Special Administrative Board to turn control back over to the elected school board members? How does the district build on the achievement of accreditation to continue moving the district forward for the next 9 years, 9 months, 19 days, and beyond?
Don't create a governance structure that when you go out, people will say, gee, you did that nice thing. Create a governance structure that people in 10 years from now, in 2027, will say, gee, you did a nice thing then. Because then they'll have had experience and really know. Work to be praised not tomorrow, but in 2027.
So let's continue with the good news just for a second. Let me read some then and now for St. Louis Public Schools. This is 2007, $24 million budget deficit. Now, $19.2 million surplus. Then 56% graduation rate. Now 72% graduation rate. We measure our schools differently, but then it was 5 of 14 standards were met, and now 74.6% of state accreditation points are met. I mean, this sounds like they're moving in the right direction. How big of a deal is this inside the district? You were smiling that night. You're a serious guy, I said to you then, and you were excited.
Well, I think it's completion of something that we wanted to get done, but this wasn't what we were really working to achieve, not in isolation. We know we have a lot of work to get done, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that work. We were glad. A lot of persons that work really, really hard, and it's a sense of achievement, a sense of accomplishment. But we really realized we, on first and second base, we still have a lot to go.
Something some people thought you wouldn't be able to do?
I think we heard those rumors, but we never believed that. We always knew if we worked hard that our kids were going to accomplish that, our staffs were going to do it. We work really hard for this to happen, and we know that, again, the undertone is that we have a lot more work to get done. We know that we've taken 5 days to celebrate, but we've moved on from that point in time.
That was it, 5 days?
5 days and it's over with. We know we still have work to get done.
I was surprised, and Kristen, you probably knew this already, but I was surprised to see Dr. Danforth there. I didn't realize the role, and I think people who'd followed this from the beginning knew this, but also other civic business leaders were there. Can you kind of give me the short version of the role they played, and are they going to stick with you, and how important was that involvement?
I think the community has wanted this kind of improvement, this kind of success for St. Louis Public Schools forever. A lot of people maybe had doubts, but this community, I think, is measured, or at least education in this town is measured by how well is St. Louis Public Schools doing. When people across the country talk about education, sadly they don't talk about other school districts. This is the one they focus on. So it's positive news locally, it's positive news nationally, and I think the real impact is that, and what I felt good about was seeing the SLPS people, students, teachers, principals, staff, walk around with shoulders, back, heads a little taller, and feeling positive, because for the first time in a long time, they were hearing very positive things about their work rather than the negative things.
So what's it really look like in the classroom from your reporting? What do these numbers that have given us this title that so many people wanted back, what does it actually look like that you've been able to determine?
Well, I think part of it is just understanding what full accreditation means and how, what those points mean. So every year the state gives annual performance report scores to school districts, and they're based on a number of factors like academic performance on state tests, subgroup performance, so how specific groups of students like minority students perform on those tests, and then it also includes college graduation rates, attendance rates, and also college and career readiness.
And I think even the quality of nutrition programs too, if I saw on some of the stats there as well.
Well, that was a measure that was a F 4 or 5 years ago. That's now an A, but it's not necessarily considered part of the accreditation.
Understood.
piece.
Understood. But
so when a 74% score, what that means is that that's improvement on all those fronts. But from what I understand, St. Louis Public Schools really improved on the graduation rates and also on the attendance rates. And so, but I think there's still work to be done when it comes to test scores. 37% of students who took state tests were proficient or advanced on English, and then 26% were for math. So that's still really kind of a small fraction of students who are really succeeding in terms of academic performance. So I think that's what a lot of people who look at the district critically, that's what they'll say is still needs to be done. So
because when we look at the list of schools in our region, we fall where? Still in the city falls where?
Based on the two factors that she indicated, which would be advanced and proficient on state assessments, the district would still be lagging behind Normandy and Riverview, Jennings possibly. So it's lower in terms of proficient and advanced. But what the state has done is measure growth. So students who are below basic, who move to basic and proficient and advanced, you get double the points of students who are below basic. A large percentage of our students obviously were below basic. So the reason why we got the points, if you will, is because we made the growth. So it's really about growth. It's not necessarily always about proficient and advanced. Yes, we always want to get there, but if we have students who are non-readers and now readers now, they may not be reading at the grade level they're in, but if they've made growth, the state gives you credit for that as well.
It's something we've heard a lot discussed nationally lately.
Yes.
Casey, I think it's important. What's unique or different about St. Louis Public Schools versus any other school district in the region. Let me use Parkway, Rockwood, each have 4 high schools. Most people would say all 4 of those high schools are very equal, providing very good education for the students. We have a real range at St. Louis Public Schools. The number 1, number 2 public high schools in Missouri are high schools within St. Louis Public Schools. So we have a broader range, and I think it has to do with the fact that we serve a much broader range of students.
So you got there a little quicker than I thought we might, but since you brought it up, let's go to a piece of tape. We actually made it out to one of the high schools I think you might be talking about, McKinley High School, earlier.
That was not.
That was,
so there's 3 great ones.
So there are three great. It's a newer high school,
Yes,
and they were a magnet school at the middle level,
Yes.
and now they've moved into the high school work.
That's correct.
But let's go to the tape from McKinley High School, to what really I think might surprise some folks when they think of St. Louis Public Schools from the outside looking in, especially when you consider one of the students we talked to is in the county choosing to transfer into the city because she and her parents believe she can get a better education in the city. Let's take a look at their perspective.
I'm very proud to say I go to SLPS schools. I know kids that go to other school districts and their teacher, they teach 30 kids and they don't really have time for that personal one-on-one. But here, it's just amazing. I can talk to a teacher. I can go to a teacher during lunch. They offer to stay after school and help me in math or science. It's just, I know I'm supported here.
That's probably not what most people outside of the city think goes on in St. Louis Public Schools.
I can't say much just because I've never lived outside outside of SLPS, but I know when I tell my mom what happens every single day, because I tell her I'm that student, she's very happy. She's happy knowing that I'm in a good place. I have teachers that support me. I'm being challenged through my academics, knowing that this will prepare me for college.
Why do you think your parents wanted you here when you could have gone to your school in the county?
It's more diverse, and I have more options in terms of academics even. I'm taking 5 AP classes currently. I don't even know if that's allowed at the school I could have gone to.
The skeptic would say the test scores aren't that great at every school. I mean, there's still work to be done, I guess.
There's always still work to be done, but you know, that's part of progress. Success isn't something that you get and that's it. You always have to work towards it. And I think we're just like any other school district. We just got to keep working.
When someone asks me what district and school I've come from, they're not only going to look at the name, they're also going to say, is this accredited? Is it an accredited district and school? And I can say yes.
Back when I first started McKinley High School as a freshman, I would have people, just like people I had just met, like be like, oh, where have you gone to high school? And I'm like, oh, I'm in McKinley, it's in St. Louis Public Schools. And they'd be like, oh, that's not an accredited district, how is that gonna work out for you? And I'd always be like, well, my school is accredited, but I think the district's very much improving and very much working towards accreditation. And because we finally got there, because we're at that standard of excellence we need to be at, I'm very proud to say I'm a product of McKinley and a product of St. Louis Public Schools in general.
Our thanks to Principal Warmack. We had they were a great host, and it was amazing to see the kids there and the energy they have and the energy he has and what's going on there. But obviously not every school is McKinley or Metro, some of the others you were talking about. How far do you think the drop-off is from McKinley to other public schools, high schools in St. Louis Public Schools?
Yeah, so there's like kind of a steep, I would say there's almost kind of a segregation within St. Louis Public Schools. You know, you have high performing magnet schools, but then also you have a lot of neighborhood schools that are still struggling with a lot of the issues that they have been for many years. Like I know teacher vacancies is a big issue within the district. I believe there are more than 140 right now. So, you know, when there's constant teacher turnover, that really has a really adverse impact on the classrooms, and it's just hard to have that kind of stability you need, and the kids aren't getting the instruction they need from certified teachers that are not always certified in the subjects that they need to be teaching. And so I know that teacher vacancies is a problem, and then also just a lot of students in these schools are facing severe poverty and trauma, and so a lot of those issues kind of seep into the classroom. And just since students who are facing those kinds of challenges are concentrated so much in certain schools, it kind of just, the density of that, of those challenges just compounds on itself and makes it harder to achieve progress, I think, so.
Two quick comments.
Please.
Earlier in Dr. Adams' tenure, he and the SAB said, we're going to focus school by school. We're just going to raise the standard on a school by school basis. 5 years ago, 12 schools would have been identified as accredited, or what's called accredited with distinction. Today that number's 34. So I think Dr. Adams has approached it on a school by school basis. The other thing in the tape that we just saw, that scene that people see in the hallways is replicated in every one of our schools. I think that's one of the real unfortunate things in the St. Louis community. People have this perception of chaos and craziness in the classroom in the hallway.
And danger. That's a perception.
Totally
Not
wrong.
saying it's accurate.
I have said to many people, anytime you want to, I'll pick you up, you name the school, we'll go right over and visit it. The principal will walk us around. And what you saw in that tape at McKinley, you would see at literally every school at St. Louis Public School, any day of the week, any time of the day.
So what will it take to get the rest of the schools to the McKinley or the Metro level, or is that even the goal? Is that even when they're able to, when they're people are applying to those schools, for lack of a better word? So is that even the goal, or is that even possible?
I think the goal for us is to give kids in schools the best opportunity to be successful. The schools that you described, McKinley is a magnet school, so persons apply to get in that school, and we have some 23, 24 schools that occurs in. But there are a number of schools that you don't apply to get in. You go because you live in the neighborhood. And so we want to give those kids maximum opportunity. That's why in a school like McKinley, they may not have a full-time social worker, but a school like Vashon might have 2 or 3 social workers, because we want to make sure that kids in that environment have every single opportunity. You talked about the notion of people feeling unsafe, but our neighborhoods are unsafe. Things are happening on a regular basis in our neighborhood. Over the last 10 days or 12 days, we've had a student kidnapped outside of the school, a student killed outside of the school, and a student killed in a car wreck. And so that doesn't happen in a normal school district. It happens in a district where you have high poverty and a great deal of need. So we want to make sure that there are no excuses. So we provide full-time social workers, counselors in those schools that need those kind of resources, because we don't want any excuses. Even if those things do occur, we don't want those things to happen inside of the school, and we want to support the kids who come into school on a regular basis and motivate them to be there every single day to achieve.
Challenges that city districts all over the country are facing?
Every single district in America is facing those challenges. But what we have tried to do is not allow there to be any excuses from our staffs, from our students, from our central office. And so even if those things do occur, we provide the resources to support them and then keep going, because we know life continues and we have to support the kids who are there.
So how long until you can convince parents of young children, get them off the 5-year plan people talk about? We have a child in the city, and we got 5 years to get to Clayton or Ladue or wherever, and then not to mention so many parents that that's just not even an option. How long until that is no longer part of the conversation in St. Louis?
I don't know that it has ever not been the conversation from the people I talk to on a regular basis. I think people have a lot of perceptions that I don't know that we could ever overcome. It is our responsibility to do what we did around this notion of accreditation. Give them a reason to say no. If the data says positive things, then they have to go against the data. And so I think we can't control what people think and believe in the city of St. Louis. What we can do is give them the best possible option based on what the data says. The state of Missouri said accredited school district like 509 districts in this state. While we know we have a lot of room to grow, we also know that our teachers are working extremely hard, and we've met the measure that the state said we have to meet. So the perceptions, I don't know that we can do anything about it. What we can do, though, is put on the table a quality program for every single kid in the schools that they go to.
So what's it going to take to keep this going? If we're moving in the right direction, as the accreditation would seem to imply, what's it going to take? How much of a factor is stability, whether it be Dr. Adams or the school board?
I mean, I think that's clearly a factor. There's got to be good governance. There's got to be a great working relationship between the board and the superintendent that exists today, and we have every reason to think that it will continue.
So when can we be trusted to elect our own school board in St. Louis?
That's for somebody else to decide. The State Board of Education will make that decision, when and how transition will occur, and at some point, and I think there's an election frequently, or every 2 years, I guess, for elected board members. There's an election this April.
Right.
There are 7 people on the ballot for that election. It is important for the citizens of St. Louis to go out and learn who those 7 people are, learn who's most qualified, and make sure that they vote for the most qualified people, because sooner or later, that elected board will become the governance of St. Louis Public Schools.
Do you hear many people, Kristen, asking for the school board to be turned back over to the elected board?
I actually don't feel like I hear many of those voices. I know that when I do talk to the elected school board, they in general, those members seem really eager to bring it back to local elected governance, just because on principle, they believe that's what it needs to be. That's how pretty much every other school district is run. But I'd say a lot of just education leaders and like people in the state have been they've seen that the Special Administrative Board, which is the appointed governing board currently in charge of St. Louis Public Schools, they've seen that they have a good working relationship with Dr. Adams, and they've stayed this long. I think just the sheer fact that the whole governance has, all the members, or most of the members have stayed for almost a decade. So just seeing that stability and seeing that they're willing to stay, I think that has kind of given a lot of encouragement to St. Louis Public Schools members. And so since they see that it's working, I don't think anyone's really jumping the wagon.
No appetite at the state level,
no
eagerness to change.
Well, yeah, I can't speak for the state board, but that's just kind of the vibe I feel. But no one ever said that the governing board, the appointed board, will stay forever. It was never meant to be permanent, so it has to change back to the elected board sometime.
Did you think you'd be doing this for a decade?
Absolutely not.
Do you think, will you do it for another decade?
I'll do it as long as I think we're making progress. I think the key for this governing body, I think the key for any governing body in the future is to put agendas aside, put personal feelings aside, and keep the students first and foremost. That's what this board committed to do, that no matter what, we'd put students first in our decision making, and I think that's what has guided this group of three, and now there's a newer person who has the same commitment, who keep the students first.
Not only did you guys stay together, but your superintendent stuck around. You had, in the city, I believe we had something like 6 and 7 years, or 7 and 8 years. That's how many superintendents we had over that stretch of time. 6 and 7. Six different superintendents in 7 years. Why haven't you taken a better job, Dr. Adams?
I think this is the best job in America. I really do. I think I have a board that's very supportive. I have a community that has been incredibly supportive, business partners, and this community has just said yes every single time I've asked. So I don't know that there is a reason to do something other than what we're doing right now. And so this board has given me a lot of cover to make mistakes, and to the public wouldn't know anything about the mistakes I've made because the board provides me cover to do the kinds of things and take the kind of chances and risks. So I think this is the best job in America.
I ask you that because when we talk to principals, they're surprised you're still here, and they're grateful you're still here. You're a modest guy. He's not going to take probably much public credit, I don't think, Mr. Sullivan. But I mean, I think people are curious what motivates you, what keeps you going on a job that a lot of people would maybe consider thankless.
I think you asked the question on what will it take for this to continue. I think stability is one piece of it. And from my perspective, I don't think we've achieved everything that we can. And so as long as there's still work to be done, I'm committed to getting the work done. And so I'm just committed to doing this work. We made a commitment 8.5 years ago, at least I did, and we discussed privately and a little bit publicly that we are going to commit to continue to do this work, and we'll tell each other when it's time for us to think about doing something different. But right now, we're all committed to doing this work.
What's the number one thing you're lacking, or that you might see in your reporting, open up to everyone, that we desperately need in this district if we're going to continue this progress?
I think one of the biggest challenges facing the district now is just the sheer loss of students. Like I think the board and Dr. Adams have been trying to find solutions to that. They've been closing schools, trying to see which schools are just not facing I don't know, just a promising future in terms of enrollment growth.
Is it accurate we've lost about 10,000 students since 2007?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And I believe 2,000 of those students left almost just right after they lost accreditation. Yeah. So between the time they lost accreditation and the next school year, 2,000 students were gone already. So I think, and there's a lot of factors contributing to why they're losing students. There's also the growth of charter schools, which now educate about 1/3 of public school students in St. Louis.
Let me ask you what you think about that, because the new governor, it seems to be very much in favor of school choice. What does that mean to you, and is that going to make your job harder or make our schools better?
That's a good question. I don't know what school choice really means at this point in time because it's not been well defined by legislation. And so it doesn't mean vouchers, doesn't mean charters across the entire state. We've heard a number of different things. But until legislation is put in place to say what will occur, it's kind of hard. In terms of my perspective around charters, I think a friend of mine who's a charter school person, we call it co-opetition. So it's about cooperating, but there's competition as well as it relates to finding out how we provide the best resources to kids, whether it's in a charter school or a quote-unquote normal regular public school, with charter schools or public schools, in terms of the funding piece. So I think there's a level of competition that takes place. And it's a healthy competition, because I think what we're trying to do is make sure that kids have the best option for them. It's less about the institution and more about what kids need to have. And if charters do a better job of doing that, then parents have their choice to look at them. If we do a better job of doing that, then charters look at us. And so I think that's what this whole quote-unquote choice piece is about. I'm fearful, however, that that we're on an equal playing field. So if we have a book of rules from the State Department of Education that's this thick, and charters have a book that's about this thin, then it makes it much harder for us to meet the same goal because of the kind of rules and structures that are in place.
And of course, backing up, you said funding. When you lose 10,000 students, the money goes with
Yes,
them.
you do.
On that.
That's correct.
We just have a few seconds. The previous governor said this would be a shot in the arm economically to get accreditation. You think it will do something for the entire region?
I think it has to. I mean, again, nothing else, it brings pride to everyone connected to it. But I think the real answer to the matter that you just addressed, we are in a competitive environment. It's important for us to look at this on a school-by-school basis. Families don't choose a school district, certainly not today. They choose their school. And you asked earlier, what does it take? How do we turn this around? Visit a school. I think if a parent, a family will visit any great school, they'll like what they see.
We'll leave it there. Dr. Adams, Rick Sullivan, and Kristen Takata from the Post-Dispatch, thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.